items in the pouch in front of you.
Have a safe and informative journey.
Hello, I'm Nathan Hartman, and this is Dreamfinders, a podcast about the creative culture of Disney theme parks. A person's fandom for something can take many forms. Sometimes it's what we wear, other times it's what we read or watch, but for today's guest, it's what he roasts. Erick Kanter and his wife Marlene are the brains behind Expedition Roasters, a company that specializes in what they've described as themed teas and coffees. There's Enchanted Tiki Coconut, Redhead Rum, and Ghoulish Delight Cinnamon Bun, just to name a few, all celebrating a bit of the Disney magic we love. Erick sat down with me to chat about how his love of dogs led him to first get into coffee roasting, how they come up with those unique Disney-inspired flavors, and what it's like working with other Disney-loving artists to create their beautiful packaging. We also have our very first Dreamfinders giveaway, so you can try some of what Expedition Roasters has to offer. Full details will be at the end of the episode, so stay tuned. All of that and more is coming right up on Dreamfinders. Erick Kanter, welcome to Dreamfinders.
Thank you very much for having me on.
So of all the different artists that I've interviewed who are inspired by Disney and sort of what they do, your craft might be one of the most unique. Tell us a little bit about Expedition Roasters.
Well, we're a specialty small batch roaster. And we brought our love of Disney, combined that with our love of coffee, and that's how we kind of started. We were originally actually Smiling Dog Coffee at first. We started about 4 years ago, and that was to help family and friends that had helped dog rescues. So we donate a portion of each purchase to them, and we still do that with a lot of our sales. Every portion from every sale we donate to some of the dog and animal rescues we still work with, as well as other Disney charities and other veterans groups and stuff like that. So we don't always, put that out there, but we do, also charity work with our sales from our coffees.
Oh, that's great. Here are a few names of your coffees: Dark Side Roast, Enchanted Tiki Coconut, Redhead Rum. So you mentioned this idea on your website about themed coffees. Could you elaborate a little bit to give people an idea what you mean by that?
We kind of wanted to somehow create the theme park experience at home with coffees. So what we did was we went out and we found some great artists to work with, and they're the ones that actually create the artwork on the bags. And we started with simple craft bags with little labels, but we've expanded, last year. And our new bags, the artwork's fully printed on there. So we combine the artwork with a great story to go along with it. And whatever the theme of the coffee is, we try and theme that flavor or roast to it as well. So creating a whole experience from visual to reading the story to the actual experience of drinking the coffee, of smell and of course taste.
So take us back. What's your history with coffee? When did you first take your first sip of Joe?
Like most people, probably when I was little and hated it. And actually growing up, late teens or so, actually got into drinking different teas and finding that, hey, there's actually some good teas out there from different regions and whole leaf teas and everything. But then, of course, joining the workforce and working, 40 plus hours a week and looking for a little extra kick, everyone's like, oh, you got to have coffee in the morning and stuff like that. So at the workplace, you've got your cup of coffee there and it's still just awful, but it gave you that extra little boost. So then started looking into, well, if there's, better teas than your normal little bag teas from the grocery stores, there's got to be better coffees. And Starbucks was becoming big at that time, but tried that. Didn't really like that. I found it too bitter. So further investigated, looking around and, found that, hey, there's specialty roasters and small batch roasters. And became interested in that. And it wasn't until almost probably 10 years later that we decided to try something on our own and hooked up with a local roaster here and kind of showed us the ropes and got us involved with that. And we're still partnered with him. It's great because he allows us to use the equipment there. And also, if we're not available, because we're still doing this part-time, they're able to roast for us so we can keep everything on schedule and get everyone's caffeine out to them.
So you mentioned this is part-time. This definitely seems like a passion for you, especially like your connections with different charities and things of that nature, a way to sort of give back in a kind of nerdy way. What's your full-time job? What do you do to pay the bills while this is sort of your passion?
I actually do clinical research, and my wife's a teacher. So that's what our full-time jobs are right now.
But you would hope to go full roaster at some point.
At some point, that's the hope. Like I said, we're building slowly, and it's great to have this as something on the side that we can take the time and put our passion into it, and not become dragged down by it's just another job. So,
what aspect of the science of roasting really appealed to you? I mean, I know sometimes people really get into like picking the beans. Sometimes they get really interested in the roast. What sort of area did you gravitate towards that led you sort of past, getting involved and sort of curious to the whole idea of like creating your own types?
It was actually the roasting process, which we were first introduced with at our local roaster here. And, there's a science behind it, but it's also an art form. And, single origin roast were kind of big. And, you got to have the direct from one farm and everything. But we gravitated more, and it's becoming more, mainstream and popular too, is blending different roasts, because you can take beans from, region, maybe in Ethiopia, and then, somewhere in South America, because you get different flavors from the beans depending on what region they're from. And it was fun to try and, play with it and say, oh, well, what if we roast this way and this one this way, and combine them and see what type of flavors you can, create just with the coffee and beans themselves.
Now, you mentioned you have a partner in crime for this whole endeavor. How did your wife get into coffee? Or into the roasting process? Was that you sort of showing her what it's about? Did she sort of lead the charge? How did you guys come at it as a team?
I've always been the more creative type. I was an artist, wanted to be an artist growing up, and but then getting married and other things happening, never fully pursued it. So I've always been the creative type, coming up with the designs and themes and ideas and stuff. And she's always been the more stable with the financial side. So she handles a lot of the books and all that stuff on the back end. And when I go crazy, we should do this and we need to do this, and she reins me in. So she's kind of like, the Roy to my Walt, so as we put it.
And speaking of Roy and Walt, tell us a little bit about your history with the Disney parks. Clearly, no one goes into roasting beans that are inspired by theme parks and Disney stuff without having a love for it themselves.
Yeah, growing up, grew up in New Jersey, and we'd go down to Disney World every other year or so, when we were growing up. And then actually when I was 15, my parents moved down there, so of course we all moved, and I lived down there for about 6 years, so we were only about 2.5 hours away from the parks there, so spent a lot of time, and actually pursued, trying to get into a job in animation with Disney. Had the opportunity, passed it up, and, kind of led me back here to Jersey, which was good, where I met my wonderful wife. But I'm also big into, Walt the man himself, and, reading everything about him, and his, visions and drive and everything. And on our 10-year anniversary, we were able to go out to Disneyland, and that was just a great experience. And we've been visiting Disneyland more than Disney World the past 10 years or so.
What draws you to Disneyland over the much larger Disney World resort?
Just that it's smaller, but it's more, I guess, cozy, and it's great that of course now there's 2 parks out there as well, and you can just walk right across the promenade, to either park without having to take transportation. There's a lot more, of course, rides packed into each park instead of being spread out across all 4 parks. So it just feels a little bit more homey, and of course it's, the park that Walt actually built and walked in and had fun in.
Now, this is always a tough question, but it's one I always want to know. What is your favorite ride, or do you have a favorite ride at the at different Disney parks?
Pretty much, love Adventureland, and Jungle Cruise is our favorite ride, which is, why we kind of based our branding on kind of the Adventureland theme. And Skipper's Brew was one of our first coffees we actually created, and it's kind of our our go-to coffee there, our main coffee.
A banana pie flavored coffee for those who have not had the opportunity to try it.
Correct.
So why make coffees inspired by your love of Disney? I mean, there's a lot of different themes people can take and different things people can do, but why that?
Well, when we started, it was, like I said, for charity cause. We figured, okay, it's dogs, it's coffee. Who doesn't love both? So there's got to be some marriage there to help raise funds. And from there, I'm like, well, if we love Disney this much, and we know there's a great Disney community out there, we've been involved in it. So we figured that would just be a great thing to bring to them, since it hadn't really been done before. So that's kind of where it all started.
And you mentioned, the work with the charities and with dog rescue organizations. Why dog rescue? What got you guys into dog rescue?
We've always been, we've had dogs growing up my whole life, and, just great dog lovers and all. And my sister actually is part of a rescue down in Florida, and they're always looking. It's all based on just charity and funding that comes in from donations. So they're always looking for funding one way or another to either take the dogs in, feed them, medical stuff. So it just seemed the right thing to do to try and help out a little bit.
So you started as Trader Sam's Coffee Company when you went with the Disney sort of concept,
right.
And then you changed your name. What was the reason for that?
We had an issue. It wasn't with Disney, surprisingly, because we've actually done some work with some people, that work for the Disney company. So they knew about us, and they seemed okay with everything we were doing. But we had an issue with another company that didn't like the name we were using and said it was too close to theirs. But at the same time, we were actually thinking about changing it, since we were kind of growing pretty quick and wanted to kind of, build our own entity and not be fully tied in our brand name and everything directly to Disney. So that was kind of the reason for the change, although it happened a little bit sooner than we wanted to.
Yeah, and there seems to be one of the odd creative elements of sort of what you guys do is that there's a bit of a balancing act. You mentioned Disney's didn't have any issue with your name, but there is that somewhat balancing act of celebrating Disney and what Disney stands for without technically officially celebrating it. What's that challenge sometimes when you're thinking of branding and naming?
It's just, of course, not, treading on any of their trademarks or anything. Of course, the big thing, of course, Mickey and all that stuff is a no-no. But, a lot of their stuff is already either based on public works and like, Alice in Wonderland and all. So a lot of that already is public works as long as you're not using like their direct animated characters. So there's always a way to do an homage to either a film or an attraction and that kind of thing.
A major element of your theme coffees is, of course, something you mentioned, which is the artwork on each package. All very beautiful, I should say, and all done by various artists who also have a passion for Disney parks. How did you get connected with these different artists? Did you just reach out to them, or what was that sort of interaction like?
Yeah, well, that was the first big challenge when we decided to do this, because I was kind of doing our own little artwork for the coffee bags before, when we were doing the animal rescues. And when we knew we wanted to create something that was more themed so we can do a story along with the art, was trying to find someone that would work with us. But of course, not being, a big company, it's just, starting out on the side, we don't have thousands of dollars to throw at artists to create artwork for us. And, we knew we wanted that classic Disney style attraction, art. And we found someone online, Mario Graziati, and contacted him and said, hey, he had these great drawings and artwork already done. Hey, can we use some of them? We'll give you credit and this and that. And he's like, no, I don't want to use my current artwork, but, I'll make up some new ones for you if you want. And, as long as you give me credit. And I said, yeah, sounds like a plan. And that's how it kind of started. So he did about 6 or 7 bags for us. And he does most of our bags, although we have 2 other artists that we work with as well, Gavin Ottiston as well as Rob Yo. And they've done a couple bags each for us, too.
So here's an interesting question. As you mentioned, you deal with small batch. And that, can be sort of delicately worked with and sort of looked over. And that's sort of the opposite of Disney's coffee culture, right? If you go to the parks, they all sort of get it from one source or another, right? There's Starbucks and there's Joffrey's there,
Right.
and done in mass quantity. There's nothing more popular than a Starbucks on a rainy day at Disney. What do you think about the coffee at Disney, and is there a way they could do it better?
Well, Starbucks is always going to be Starbucks. I mean, they have their way of roasting, and it's more that, Northwestern style. So it is, has a, maybe a little bit more bite and, maybe a little bit more bitterness to it. But that's just the style that from where they came from. Joffrey's, they actually have good quality coffee. They start with premium beans, and the biggest problem is, of course, once it's out of your hands and into, brewing in mass quantities like at the parks, that's where the quality can change, because water quality, how you brew it and everything can really change, really good coffee into really bad coffee. So we've had good cups there and we've had bad cups there. It all depends, who's making it there. And you can still do great, quality coffee in larger quantities as long as you control it, because the roaster we work with, he also does some large batch roasting as well. And, it's still good as long as you control the quality.
So tell us a little bit about your process. And now I don't want any company secrets, but, you have a very distinct flavors inside of your coffee. As I mentioned, the banana pie, and there's a few others that are really distinct, like the coconut. And you can really, you get that vibe not only from smell, but from taste. How does one do that? Of course, you can't, plant a coconut and a coffee bean together and get that. What's that process like?
Yeah, we've kind of by accident almost, became known for these little weird and wilder flavors and stuff you can't get anywhere else. And it only started that way, I think, because of the Skipper's Brew, the Jungle Banana Pie, which we had access to flavors from a local company that creates all our flavors for us. And it seemed kind of odd, but I'm like, that's kind of where it started. I'm like, oh, banana pie, we can do a jungle banana pie. That would be perfect for a Jungle Cruise coffee. And that's where the brainstorming started and expanded from there. But myself, funny enough, I'm actually not a flavored coffee guy. My wife is the one that actually likes the flavored coffees. I'm more of a regular blend coffee drinker.
Interesting.
But we kind of, it can go one or two ways. We either see this flavor that just kind of clicks that, hey, that would go great with this, or like, what, we really love this attraction or this, film, and what can we do to blend something together that would create a great theme for it. And our flavoring people, they either have, they have a list of basic flavors that they do, but anything we can come up with, they can pretty much make for us. And like our new Fortune and Glory coffee, which is a bourbon streusel, we're like, hey, we want another kind of alcohol based, but also want it a little bit sweet. So we played around with a couple things. They made some flavorings up for us and kind of came up with that.
What's the most challenging coffee that you've had to come up with or make, either in the process or in the creative sort of pre-planning?
They actually just kind of mostly come to me, depending on what we're looking for. But the one that we did that was a little bit challenging was actually doing it with a contest for our Happily Never After, which ended up being it's a vanilla praline that we call New Orleans praline. And that's because it was kind of out of our hands a little bit with it being open to the public and them coming up with the flavoring and then trying to still tie it in somehow with being, the Haunted Mansion bride themed.
Now, I think this is probably the toughest question because it's sort of picking from your darlings, but what's your favorite Expedition roast?
Right now it's Route 66, which is the morning blend. And it's either that or the Colombian. Those are kind of my mainstays.
Are there any new flavor ideas that you have sort of rolling around in your head that you're excited about trying out in the near future?
Yeah, actually we have a lot because it takes at least 2 months, sometimes 3 months to come out with a new coffee. So it's something that takes time because our artists have to, after we think of something and put something together, our artists have to, create the artwork, which takes time. Getting the bags printed up from our printer, and then, of course, the roasting and getting the flavoring done. And so it takes a while, but we do have our seasonal blends coming back for the fall and winter, as well as we've got about 6 new ones that are in the works that'll start coming out between the fall and then early next year.
Any Epcot-related blends that might be showing up at any time soon?
I don't think so, but if you'd like to give some suggestions, we're always open.
I'm just saying, Living with the Land is right there. You know, it's pure natural. It's going to be the most organic coffee is Living with the Land. Erick, I'd love to thank you for being on Dreamfinders. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you very much. Glad to be on.
And that's it for this episode of Dreamfinders. Thanks to Erick Kanter of Expedition Roasters for being my guest. You can check out their full line of Disney and now some Harry Potter-inspired coffees and teas at expeditionroasters.com. Want to win some of this magical goodness? Perfect, because we're giving some of it away. You can win your choice of a 12-ounce bag from Expedition Roasters with our very first Dreamfinders giveaway. The process is really easy. Just go to wdwnt.com/dreamfinders, and there you will find a link to enter the giveaway. All you have to do is 3 things. 1, fill out the form. 2, go to the Dreamfinders Apple Podcast page and give us a 5-star rating and review. 3, follow Expedition Roasters on their Facebook page. That's it. I promise we'll never sell your information and put you on any sort of email list. This is just so we can contact you if you win. You have till May 23rd, 2019 to enter, and after that we'll randomly choose a winner and get a hold of you. Again, all that information for the giveaway can be found at wdwnt.com/dreamfinders. Our podcast artwork is provided by JP Tanner. Find his other work at tanwoodcreative.com. This podcast is distributed by WDW News Today, the worldwide leader in Disney Parks news. Read all they have to offer at wdwnt.com. Dreamfinders is hosted and produced by yours truly, Nathan Hartman, who you can follow on Twitter at SomeStuffISaid. If you or someone you know would make a great guest on this program, feel free to email us at dreamfinders@wdwnt.com. I'm Nathan Hartman, and remember, if we can dream it, then we can do it.